Greetings, friends. My name is Eliu Perez, and it's an honor for me to welcome you to another edition of this your Ardurra podcast. Today, I happen to be in the presence of our Chief Drainage Officer, and that person is Mr. Kennedy Simmonds. Kennedy, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Eliu. It's great to be here. Very exciting.
I've had you on the radar for some time because drainage is something that is critical here in the Miami area, particularly surrounded by so much water like we have in the background with the Miami airport. I bet that's a sight for you.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's a perfect example of what we do as drainage engineers, especially in South Florida. You see a lot of lakes or ponds, primarily for water quality treatment, also for flood control. So in the rainy seasons, it's very, very poignant that we have that background here.
You know, it's easy to underestimate what goes into drainage because it's such a complex, and it's never visible until you have a problem, right? If something is not draining, we have a problem.
That is perfectly right.
And also, it's a privilege of very developed nations to do magic with drainage, like the Dutch do over there in Amsterdam. You know, it's a discipline that must not be forgotten. Very important. Kennedy, today I want to go back and talk a little bit about your life and career, but let's begin in the beginning. Where did it all start for Kennedy?
Oh, perfect. So I was born in the islands of St. Kitts and Nevis, twin island nation in the Caribbean, West Indies. And my father was a doctor by profession. He eventually became a politician. He was actually the prime minister of the country for a number of years. My mom by profession was a nurse, and that's how they met. And eventually she actually started her own business as well back home as a t-shirt printing business. I have 2 brothers and 2 sisters. I'm right in the middle. And so grew up there. All of my education, early education was in the islands. So that's where I got my love for maths and physics. Also some experience there as well as working. But yeah, that's
Nevis.
Yes.
Isn't that the place where our dear friend Alexander Hamilton was born?
That is true, yes. That's a fun fact. Alexander Hamilton was born in Nevis.
Yeah,
actually.
the Fighting Creole.
Yes.
I read the book, and this is an exciting story right here, you know, because you share something with this, and you're an immigrant to the United States like he was.
Yes.
Foreign-born founding father.
Yes.
You know,
exactly.
so that was amazing. He got a little bit of trouble for that from the other founding fathers,
Yeah.
as you can, read in the book. But how exciting to have started there. At what point in time, Kennedy, did the profession of engineering get manifested in your life?
Actually, fairly early. I did have, like I said, I guess with most engineers, you kind of learn when you become good at maths or physics, what are you going to do? You try and figure out that profession that, And for me, math was not always easy. And then early on, I had some very bad exams, where I had one exam before I got to junior high school. It was pretty rough. At the end of the exam, I was crying. So math was not my best friend at that time.
So it would have been a good time to surrender.
Yes, exactly. But when I got to junior high school, I guess that traumatic event kind of triggered something in the brain, maybe, I don't know. And so after that, I was pretty good at math and physics. And so once I graduated high school, figuring out what I was going to do, I happened to get an internship with a construction company on the islands. They were building a cruise ship berth and land reclamation. Port Zante is the name of the actual facility. And so I learned, I met a lot of engineers, construction workers. I did welding, I did surveying. They had people from all over the world doing that profession. And that's where I learned that engineers, they all did their work, but they all had fun. And so for me, the maths, the physics kind of tied into that, and that kind of led me to the engineering.
You discovered I can have fun doing this.
Exactly.
And be outside and look at beautiful things and so forth. And I know that you're a musician. I just don't know the depth of your expertise, but I've been told that you can play an instrument or two.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough. Early on, I did classical music early on in my youth. And part of the curriculum in the junior high schools back in the island at the time, some classes we learned steel drums. We actually had a band, so they taught everyone. You didn't have to have music, as a background. It was
an elective,
right, in the class. And so that's kind of where my early exposure to music came. Boys choir. I joined the band early on, back then. And then once I came to the U.S., I played with some different bands. And I was fortunate enough to eventually play with Burning Spear. He's a legend reggae artist. and I toured with him for a few years. So that's
Oh,
kind
you
of
toured?
Yeah, I did tour for a few years, about 6, 7 years, off and on.
Dreadlocks and all?
Oh yeah, I had the long hair, the dreads. I was a totally different looking person, but I was still doing the engineering at the time too. So, but I was able to balance that.
Oh, so you kept the dreadlocks during the engineering profession.
Yeah, that was for me. It was important at the time, even before I was doing the music. It was kind of like I guess a tie to my culture.
Your identity.
Yes, exactly, to my identity. And so for me, it was a matter of pride to kind of also maintain that as I was doing engineering, kind of bringing your personality to the field, right?
It's beautiful, and I have to believe that the music and reading music was instrumental to your engineering skills.
Yes, it's also what I learned after a while. I guess music is very pattern-like, right? But there's melodies, there's chords, there's different things. So just as with engineering, you kind of have to figure out the patterns, or you have to learn that. You have to evaluate and come up with or solve problems, solve issues. And so I think it was a good balance, but it was a good complement as well. I know a lot of engineers that actually play music, so it's very...
I do too.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen many engineers who have claimed that their piano, early on was made it easier for them to have that analytical mind.
Yeah, I think it does, yeah.
Yeah. And tell me, when did the idea to come to the United States come about?
So once I graduated high school, my sister actually went. I went to USF, University of South Florida in Tampa, and so my sister and aunt both went there beforehand. My dad got an honorary degree from there, so it was kind of meant that I was going to go there. But for me, South Florida was one of the places I wanted to go to just because of the weather, closer to home, in the islands.
Tampa Bay?
Exactly, Tampa Bay was nice. But yeah, so from coming to the U.S. to kind of get a little bit a broader knowledge of the field. I obviously there are great universities in the West Indies as well, but for some reason I guess I just chose to come here and further that.
And did you choose a water?
So good question. I actually started. I started civil engineering, but I was focused more on structures. Because as an engineer, I guess growing up, you think of engineers as more buildings, structures, roads. So not even roads at the time, maybe, but yeah. So I actually was in structures as a structural engineer. My final design project was a bridge project where we were, looking at the structures of it, the foundations and stuff like that. And so yeah, I didn't really get into the drainage side of it. Once I graduated, I was actually not a citizen yet. I had my work visa. But I was able to get a job with a land development firm at the time. And so that's where the civil side of it came in, commercial sites, permitting, drainage, ponds. And then after that, after 4 or 5 years, I relocated to Orlando with a transportation firm. It's a larger firm now, so that's where I got exposed to all the transportation drainage. Stuff that I do now, ponds, canals, bridges, storm sewer design. And so yeah, that's where I got my feet wet. And
your boot camp.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, my boot camp. And so yeah, it was a good experience for me to go through that process though, because as a smaller firm, you kind of get exposed to everything. At a bigger firm, you kind of get to expand a little bit. But I was fortunate enough to kind of get experience.
You fell in love with the pond and decided to become a registered engineer?
Yeah, I did. After I graduated in 2000, so about 4 years. It was about 4 years you can take the exam. And I got my PE here in Florida. And then during the recession, I actually, there was a little bit, not as much work as, we'd like for everyone. So I was fortunate enough to actually get some work in Texas. And so then I actually eventually, after making some good relations over there with the company I was with, CH2M Hill at the time, I got my Texas PE as well. So I'm certified in Florida and Texas.
Drainage in Florida and in Texas are different games?
Oh yeah, it's a totally different game. I mean, Florida, we deal with a lot more. We're flatter. The season of the groundwater is a lot higher. It's not as much rolling hills. So, where's the water gonna go? How are you gonna get it there? Yeah. In Texas, it's a little bit, it's hilly. It's more, crests and curves and different things. Canals are bigger, more wide open space. So it's a little different. The criteria is a little different. It's the same concepts, of course. Same guidelines and criteria, but a little bit different challenges. Let's put it that way.
The water table scares me in any respect. I want to stay away from anything wet.
Yeah, it's something we think about a lot down here in South Florida, especially.
Yeah. And tell me, when did you? I know you're a married man, and when did all that happen?
So I graduated. I did move to Orlando. That's where I met my wife. Also, with us, I was playing music as well. She's actually born in New York. She's Puerto Rican descent, so I guess New Yorican.
New Yorican.
Right? There you go. That's what you'd say. And so we've been married. It's going to be 19 years this year, and
never looked back.
No, never looked back. And I have one daughter. She's going to be 15 this year. That's the little family. We have a little dog, and we just do our
And
thing.
the move to South Florida.
Yes, so we met in Orlando, and we moved here recently, about 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, that's where I began the beginning of my Ardurra trek, right?
Yeah.
I came with Provida and PhD at the time, and then eventually, after about 2 years, we joined up with Ardurra. And that was, another great step for me.
Yeah, when Ardurra acquired and merged with PhD, we found such a happy institution that we said, my goodness, this is going to be easy, because the institutional health that we found, the report card was perfect. There was enthusiasm. Everybody was happy. It seemed like a happy family. You guys were even singing. you had your karaoke club, and you had some other musical ideas, and it was a perfect fit. The transition was seamless. It was easy.
It was, and that's one of the biggest things, I guess, with Provida. Culture was important, to Walfrey. And for me, I always say, it's kind of important to have a good mix of culture with your work environment. The great thing about Ardurra was that, Ernesto spoke about that also, was that it had to be a good fit. And we found that culture was also still here. We joined up with 300 engineering at the time, similar cultures, similar kind of, work ethic, very technical, very,
client
driven.
focused.
Yes, client focused and driven. But, we can have fun. We can make it fun while you learn. And that was, I think it's an important, component of any kind of companies to have that culture. What do you want it to be like? Make it good.
And as a musician that you are, you also compose the Ardurra jingle.
Yeah, so even at Provida, we were talking about doing songs. We have different musicians here. Angela Benes was also involved but once we got to Ardurra, Sylvia Beltry was also, came on with us at Provida, and then she also writes, tinkles around with writing songs. And so we had the idea, okay, let's do this. It was a Christmas dinner, the first Christmas dinner for Ardurra that we were with Ardurra. And so it was the last minute, let's do a little song, and she wrote
I was there.
Oh, yeah.
I was there. I saw you at your first solo performance of the Ardurra jingle in front of a big audience.
It was a fun thing, right?
Yeah.
It was just a little fun thing to do for the dinner, just as, be happy to be a part of Ardurra. And then it became, the Ardurra song. So, but it was nice, yeah.
Hey, look out, everyone. The Ardurra jingle is something that has really captivated the imagination of so many people. And thank you for doing that. It has given us some fun memories.
Yeah, it was a fun thing to do, and I'm glad we had the opportunity to do.
Well, tell me about the role of the chief drainage officer. What keeps you on your toes here at Ardurra?
So I'm basically on the transportation side. I'm the lead drainage engineer. So I'm involved in marketing, anything related to transportation drainage, whether it's all the offices in Florida. So we have offices in at least the transportation side, Miami, West Palm, Orlando. The other offices are Ardurra, but that's where the transportation folks are kind of based on, in Florida. Mm-hmm. And so I have drainage engineers in each, senior drainage engineers in each. So we support all the roadway transportation. I do also support, which is a good thing about being a part of Ardurra, there's a water group as well, right? And so I've been fortunate enough to kind of be able to kind of dabble a little bit there and support them as well, and they hopefully support us as well. As I said, I had my Texas PE, so I do some design and work in Texas as well. So I support the groups in Texas as well on the transportation drainage side. But it's anything from pond design, canal hydraulics, storm sewer design, design build, design projects, PD&E studies, you name it, that's pretty much what I do.
I want to ask you two basic things. a wow moment in your career and where you said, "Oh my God, this really happened," and also a scary moment that you say, "My goodness, is this gonna work?"
So a couple of moments, I guess, where I didn't think. You don't really, I guess you try to plan your future, right?
But with it's one thing to have something on paper.
Exactly.
Another thing is to have it built.
Have it built, right. And so that's probably one of the biggest benefits or wow moments is to be able to work on a project, whether you design or study. The projects that I've worked on from the PD&E study, the conceptual phase, and eventually came back to the design. But now you can actually, something that you design, you actually see it built. That's probably one of the greatest things about being a civil engineer, in this firm, is that you have the opportunity to see your work in real life. And sometimes you might have to go back and, make some changes. So that's one of the benefits, I guess, of standard engineering. One of the scary moments is when it doesn't work. So, I've had
to go explaining, huh?
Exactly. And, there've been situations where, you could do everything on the design side, but then you realize something and it's not working, and you said it would work. And sometimes that's when you have to really dig down deep, right? Yeah. It's always good, I'll tell people, it's always good to ask questions. It's always good, great, even when you've made a mistake, to kind of own up to it and very early, say that. Because what can happen is that someone can give you an idea. Something can come up.
I have to say that that's a wisdom.
Yeah.
Wisdom. And for all our young engineers out there, if you make a mistake and you realize something is not right, speak up. Yeah. You have to do it early enough so that you give other people an opportunity to help you correct the course of the journey.
Yeah, exactly. Never be afraid to ask a question. Never be afraid to make a mistake. That's how we learn.
Yeah.
It's not a cliche. It actually is true. And even when I could talk about the music too. I guess one of the things I never thought I would do was, I told you I played with Burning Spear. We toured. I was fortunate enough to play on his Grammy-winning album. He did an album in the middle of the tour of 2008, and in 2009 he won the Grammy for Best Reggae Album of the Year.
So you're a Grammy Award-winning
musician. I tell
winning
some people
musician.
Say artist. Yeah. So it was one of those things you never think you're gonna do.
Yeah. And this is a fun fact, really, because it really speaks highly of the work-life balance, and I think the music has been an important part of that in your life.
It has, and if anything, I would say too is it's good to have a good balance of work-life balance. For some people, it might be golf, it might be running, it might be whatever. For me, it was music, and it definitely helped. Not just with my the home life, but even with like you said, with work.
Yeah.
I bring my personality to work.
Yeah.
I would always say, bring your personality, who you are.
Be authentic.
Be authentic. Be who you are.
Yeah.
And it's not a bad thing,
Yeah.
And so it was important for me. Yeah. It helped me a lot.
I have to. I think we all have been through there's people who have stereotypes, and I have to imagine that if you had dreadlocks and you come to a meeting and you're the chief drainage engineer, somebody might say, "Can this guy really do the draining part?" Yeah. I know he could probably play. Did you ever face any of those apprehensions by anyone?
Yeah, actually, yes. Very early on, very early on, at one of my first early firms, smaller firms. No, it wasn't too bad, but you could tell that.
Can this guy really do it?
Yeah, can this guy really do it? And, but that was something that it never really fazed me. I was aware of it.
Yeah.
But I was always focused on I let the work speak for itself.
Yes.
And so for me, it was never something that threw me off of my track. I was very proud of being able to do that. And, although I didn't publicize or anything like that, it was just focus on the work, focus on being me, and everything else would work itself out.
You have become a terrific mentor for the young generations coming in the company. What word of advice would you give to a young, talented STEM candidate in high school thinking about a career in engineering?
You know what? One of the things I didn't do early on, I wish I did, I got involved later on, it's good to get involved with various organizations. American Society of Civil Engineers, Florida Engineering Society, different things. Get involved with the community side of engineering. I said, you should be yourself, be authentic, be who you are, be honest. The engineering field is a very rewarding profession. You get to serve the community, the public, safety's, priority of what we do. And so I would say it's also good to get involved in the community. And that's something I was fortunate enough to do with Ardurra. I was able to be a part of the Florida Engineering Leadership Institute. That's got me a little bit exposed more to various organizations. And it kind of broadens your view of the field, right? It's not just about the technical. Now we're looking at the public, how you help the community. So I'd say early on, it's good to get involved with those types of organizations. Be yourself. Focus on the technical, but have fun with it.
Yeah. Kennedy, mentors, special people, family, and anyone that you would care to mention that were fundamental in your path and in your career.
I'd have to say, I start with my wife because I said a lot of these things that I did, music and engineering, and so none of these things would be possible without her in my life and with my daughter. And so she was very patient and very supportive. And so that's important too in terms of balance and life. Early on, my parents, my mom and my dad, I think they gave me that yin-yang balance. My dad was, like I said, was a doctor, but he was a politician. You learn to be aware of your surroundings and your community and what's outside. My mom was very, very driven. I could tell a quick story. We had a plot of land next door with grass. We had to mow that, and she would say, guys, my brother and myself, we have to mow the lawn. 7 o'clock in the morning, we didn't get up. She's out there mowing. She's not waiting on us. And we wake up, we get out there, we take over.
Leading by example, huh?
Exactly. So that's a big part of who I am as well. So I credit them for as well. And I've had mentors through the years at various firms, technical engineering. Here, Walfrey has been inspirational for me because in terms of getting involved with leadership, community involvement. Franklin, for example, he's involved in some of the stuff with Pink and cancer.
Men Were Pink,
yes.
and
so it's an ongoing process of just through the years different aspects of different things, and so I kind of credit everybody almost, with a little piece of everything. So.
Everyone has something to offer you,
Yeah.
and I guess the moral of the story is don't be afraid to reach out.
Yeah.
And reach out early on.
Yes.
Never navigate without a mentor.
No, it's important. It helps.
Yeah.
And I try to do that I make myself available to everyone here. I don't know everything. I learn from sometimes when you ask me a question, I learn something.
Yeah.
Right? So it's important.
Yeah, something that rings clear to me from what you have just told me is your vocation to be vested into the community. And our corporate social responsibility campaigns have been just outstanding.
Yes,
How we get close with the community. I think that we have, and we must continue to be connected to the weakest links of society, those that are the most vulnerable. And I admire Ardurra for encouraging us to all be, close to the ground.
Yeah.
I think we're only as strong as our connection to that link. Wouldn't you agree?
I agree 100%.
Yeah.
And that helps us to build our foundation for our field, right?
Yes.
Engineering, we're not flashy. We're not out there promoting, but it's important that we are doing that.
Yeah.
Because then we can keep our profession growing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Talent, coming in.
Absolutely. So there you have it, folks. This has been just a treat. It's an honor to have had Kennedy Simmonds speak to us this morning and to tell us about his amazing story, his origins in Nevis, and his heritage, which is shared with Alexander Hamilton, coming from Nevis. And I have really enjoyed this conversation. Kennedy, I want to thank you for joining me.
Thank you,
we'll continue talking. I think you have some exciting jobs coming up.
Yes.
And things that I want to visit on, in due course. Yep. But thank you for the opportunity. And I look forward to another conversation with you in the near future.
Thank you, Elio.
Thank you all very much, and we look forward to seeing you in the next edition of one of these Ardurra podcasts. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel and also like or something like that can always help us promote what we're trying to communicate, our passion for the engineering industry and the things that we do for the community. We'll see you in the next edition of this Ardurra podcast.